Hello, and welcome to the Thursday Night Kissaten podcast. I'm the host, Cordelia. How are you doing? I'm alright here, just in the final season for school. And last night, unfortunately, I learned that my professor did not like all the work that I did. So I will have to redo them all for the final project. So if you are also a student at the university or college, I wish you all the best for your final exams and the projects. Today, in this episode, we're going to talk about a food TV drama called A Table. Make and eat historical recipes. A Table, 歴史のレシピを作って食べる, which is still airing on the BS Shochiku Tokyo every Monday night at 10:30 p.m. Since this show is still ongoing, so today we will just be the part 1. The TV drama A Table, Make and Eat the Historical Recipes aired on the BS Shochiku Tokyo from January 9th, 2023, starring Mikako Ichikawa and Ayumu Nakajima. This TV drama is actually based on a recipe book called Reshime, Enjoy the Wonderful Historical Food, which is written by Masashi Edo, who is a historical cuisine researcher and at the same time a musician. Edo has published 6 books on the topic of historical cuisine since the year of 2013. And this is actually the first time ever his book has been adapted into a real-person TV show. In the TV show, there is a couple, Jun and Yushio, who have been married for 15 years and are living in the husband's relative's house, which is a 20-minute walk from Kichijoji Station in Tokyo. They are not actually the characters in the original recipe book. It is actually fictional for the script for the TV show. So the wife, Jun, who was born in Hokkaido and has a dream of becoming an essay writer, but actually working as an academic staff member at a university. Based on my observation, I think she might work for the department of the Western history. And the husband, Yushio, who is the manager of the Department of Management at a Peiko maker company at their Nagano office. Yushio used to work in Nagano alone and only came home to Tokyo once a while. But then, because of the COVID, he transferred to work from home. You know, even though that he works remotely most of the time, he still have to drive to Nagano for some meetings and projects. So some of the time, Jun has the house for herself. But compared to the past, Jun definitely see Yushio more frequently than before, so she had a hard time to adjusting it. The historical recipes that are provided by a professor Jun works with really provide some activities for this couple to explore and work together, and also lead some amazing discussions and conversations at the dinner table. This TV show, in my own opinion, is not a cooking show, neither a history lessons show. Everything just happened between Jun and Yoshino's teamwork to cook and the dinner table's conversations. It is a story of a couple who think about how much effort has humankind made to eat deliciously, and also on the topic of how did ingredients spread to the world, and also to feel the history and the time while they're making the food, reading the recipe, and discuss the history behind the food around the dinner table. So the historical food is not just in a history textbook this time. It is vivid and alive on the table. So what a great idea, what a topic to be represented as a real TV show, to see people actually making the food and talk about the stories behind it. Because we're going to have the second part of this TV show, so in this episode, let's focus on the food. In the show, Professor Asuka Hamaguchi of the Department of the Western History, Faculty of Letters, whom Jun works with, is the researcher who provides all the recipes to Jun. She did not just provide the recipe, she also revised the recipe from the historical book and research to match the current ingredients that Jun and her husband can get from the supermarket and also the farmer's market. According to Jun, in Professor Hamaguchi's class, she uses the food as a medium to discuss the culture identity, social stats, rounded frames of mind, and even our position in power, and also just as a general human beings who needs the food to survive, to keep going. And the Professor Hamaguchi, all the recipe that she provided, from Marie Antoinette, Caesar, to Alexandra III, Richard III, and also the Victor Hugo and Leonardo da Vinci. So as a result, Professor Hamaguchi points out the food is also play a very important role in the history, also literature, the ability to impart that the human conditions. She says in the show that history becomes more familiar when people in history actually ate it. So what she means here is when you actually make the food and you eat the food, we as an audience, we use our five senses, the eye, the look, the smell, the taste, and the sound, and also the textures, the touches, to feel the food and to eat the food will help us to understand more what happened back then in the history and in their society. And she said that's the most important one, even much better than visit a museum. I can't agree more. I believe that's the truth. And meanwhile, that many of the recipes that she provides includes dumplings, all different format of something that wrapped in the dough, so which tells the audience that many cultures are more similar than we thought. Here in the episode 1, that's something that I really like, is the relationship between Marie Antoinette, the Queen of France, and her relationship with potato and bread. So, here they raise the question, how did potato travel around the world and why it spread into the France? That time with the food shortage and also her marriage across the borders and with the whole huge revolution coming their way, what is the reason? Also, at the same time, what is the reason why the ingredients have spread all over the world? And also with the Queen of France, her famous citation, "Let them eat cake," shows also the bread, the simple food of bread. Also, the food shortage has a strong tie of the French political life. And following in the later episode of the Victor Hugo, Jun's friends came to visit, who is working as a magazine editor and living in a very fancy life that Jun dreamed of having. So they talked about the baguette and the wine. The recipe of that day was onion soup, baked apples, and rice as dessert. I was very shocked about the dessert part, and then also another main dish is the lamb. So here that actually even in the show they kind of like hint to the relationship, saying that do not forget the relationship between food and colonizations, because the lamb cuisine is actually from Africa to France with all the chocolate and coffee as well. And this is definitely one of the time of colonialism. They took over the land, took the resource, similar as how the British started the Opium War with China to use the money they got from the opium to buy the tea. I really appreciate that actually the show explained the relationship there, even though it's not that obvious being seen about the vocabulary about colonialization, but we can still definitely see the relationships there. But let's go back to the Victor Hugo's that episode with the food. Prior to the Victor Hugo's writing career, the revolution of the 1989 was in part of fueled by a massive bread shortage throughout the France. Like the quotation we just mentioned from the last Queen of France, she said, "Let them eat cake." By the time of the events of Les Miserables, please forgive my pronunciation, but which spans the first half of the 19th century, a loaf of bread became a symbol of economic status in a highly satisfied society. So, and the various of the ways of Hugo describes the bread in the book are reflections of that as well. For example, he writes that the real poor eat the bread so hard that they have to cut it with an axe and to soak it for 24 hours before they can eat it. So during Hugo's time, because of the revolutions, because of the royal families running around everywhere all over the place, to make a living, many of the chefs of the palace took to the streets and opened restaurants. So people who worked hard and with a bit money that time also began to eat the food that was only served in the palace in the past. So which, according to Yoshio, that is made the France and Paris known for their food. Thanks for the revolution. The university I'm working at also offers food studies, which can be integrated into many other topics and majors. But because it is only offers another campus, I have been thinking about to take the courses the entire time. But the commute and working time always conflicted. One day, it will be so nice to study more about food and history and even food and the literature, because we have been surrounded by them the most of the time. So, it will be so nice to learn more. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. In the second part of this TV show, we will talk about the relationship more, the relationship between Jun and Yusino, and some conversations around the dinner table on the relationships and marriage. Since neither this book or the TV show is available in English, any dialogue mentioned in this episode was translated from Japanese by me. This episode is written by me, Cordelia, and talk to you soon in our next episode.